Welcome to episode 3. I have Tracey Norman, dance artist here in the city, and we're going to talk about raising a family and a dance career. And that is something that is not easy to do, but Tracey makes it look really easy, right? So, Tracey, you are a driving force in your community. You spend your time as a choreographer, a teacher, a performer, and an outside eye. So, all the while you are raising 2 girls, not on your own, obviously. You and your partner, and your choreography has been presented by numerous organizations. So can you maybe talk about that?
Yeah, I've been a choreographer for over 15 years, I guess. Performer, outside eye, all those different things, and I teach as well. So yeah, my choreography has kind of evolved over the years, and then especially since having kids, it's like more strategic, and I really am choosy about the projects that I want to do. But yeah, I've been presented by many Canadian organizations and in the States, and traveled through Europe a little bit doing some work. So yeah.
How would you describe your style?
My choreographic style?
Yeah, choreographic style.
Well, I guess I work in a contemporary form. I think I really am right now really interested in physicality more than ever, and like how I think really physical work more than anything. I'm not sure that I have a specific aesthetic. Like I don't really want to do that, but I think I've gone through times where the work has been more like dance theater, but right now I'm really focused on the body and bodies together and intersections and
yes, because I've seen 2 shows of yours, and that's the thing that struck out is the interaction between the dancers and the physicality, that you can see the lines, the change of speed, and then also the formations, and also that symbolism. I remember asking you after your most recent show before you gave birth to your second one. I'm like, what does this mean? And it was so interesting to talk about what the potential of certain things mean, but it is open-ended potentially, right, to create discussion on what choreography is, right?
Definitely open for lots of interpretation. I think that's what I'm most interested in, instead of telling one specific story.
Right, yeah.
And I work super collaboratively, so I don't even know some of the things that are going on because they're not as intimate to me as they are to the people that I'm working with, because I'm kind of, as a choreographer, a lot of times like in that inside-outside approach to the work, right? It's like I'm involved in the movement making, but often there's a lot of improvisation or tasks and lots of choice, and so it's just like when you teach though too, it's like at a certain point the students know the work way better than you do because they've been practicing it every day, and you are on the outside giving feedback. So so yeah, I like to create these kind of worlds and construct these worlds that are very open to interpretation.
So that's amazing that you can be a choreographer and a facilitator. And so you have to create a space that's safe so that your cast members are able to thrive in that vulnerability of sharing and exploring that embodied work within that underlying theme that you're trying to create, that story. So what are some of the strategies that you do to create a safe space for dancers?
Yeah, it's good. I think it depends too on the cast that you're working with. Do they know each other? Oftentimes some of them know each other, some of them don't when you begin. That's kind of another strategy of mine too. I don't necessarily like to start, say I'm working with a group of 5 people. I have a lot of long-term collaborators. Now I know I need to challenge myself and work with new people all the time. So I think sometimes I'll bring in 1 or 2 of my longtime collaborators with some new, or so then it depends how they know each other, how I know them. But also I've worked with groups of people that, I've never worked with before. So I think it's partly developing a relationship with them for me, and also with each other, I think is even more important.
Right.
So in the beginning, there are a lot of like guided warm-ups or tasks or things that I will do to purposefully bond them, or things that are challenging, things that make people laugh, like or make people really nervous, and then I participate because we all need to put ourselves on the line, I think. But also I think I give time for socializing, because I feel like it's part of, it's like how we get to know each other. And warm up is a part. So if I book a 3-hour rehearsal, I know I'm going to give them 20 to 30 minutes to do their own warm up, and then we'll talk and roll around and whatever. And that sometimes extends further. And I'm looking at the clock, but I'm thinking, oh, this feels really useful though, to allow this conversation, facilitate this conversation that's happening and feels pretty intimate and maybe on topic with what we're working on. Or at a break time, sometimes, you know, we take a 5-minute break and it ends up being a 20-minute break because we're talking, but it feels important to have that conversation. And I think the like movement facilitates that people feel, I notice this in class too, like we feel more connected to our bodies, and then we feel more open to speak about things that are really important to us that would never have happened when we came in cold in the morning to talk about, you know. So I think there's something valuable there. I always check in with myself though that it's not like some form of procrastination. Like I'm like, let's keep, but no, it's like, okay, this feels valuable. Let's let it go a bit longer. But yeah, I think allowing the space, facilitating a space where people feel that what they have to say is important. Physically what they have to say, but also I want to hear from them. If, you know, I want to make them feel like this is an equal ground where our feedback is important. And some people want to speak and some people don't, and making that okay as well. And then just really reinforcing that their choices, that their mistakes, all of that is, I often choose to use those mistakes or those things that happen, and that's really valuable.
As an example, So what are some examples of times where you weren't grounded in your body and it was challenging to hold space? So what kind of strategies for you would be to kind of shift your mindset, especially when you have young kids? If you're not sleeping well or you're running out of time to get to the venue, either at York or in rehearsal, how are you able to overcome those challenges so that you can still continue to do a good job to create a safe space so that the art can continue?
I think breathing for me is probably the most important thing. Often I find, well, not often, but sometimes I find I go into a room and I'm not the way I would choose to be because of time or something happened that I didn't intend to have happen. I know how I feel completely different in my physical body if I've done a warm-up or paid attention to myself in a way that's helpful. And if I haven't been able to do that, I can often feel like I'm going off course. So it's like, okay, now what can I do in 1 minute, So usually it's breath. So like I will close a nostril and slow down my breath. Because I think for me it's like I need to slow down that kind of like slow down my breath, which usually relates to slowing down my inner monologue that's happening about the situation. Also like changing my face, like smiling, so that my face is, because I feel like I get really, you know, I don't want to bring that stress into the room. And it's really like fleeting, that stress that when you're late or things have gone off course anyway. So I think breath, being aware of how I'm using my face and the freedom of my body a little bit, would be the main things that I would focus on. And just like we all say this dance thing, about leave it at the door. And it's so, I don't know that, I mean, it's a good rule, but I also think sometimes we can really use what we're bringing into the studio. But I do think there's a sense of like, as you're going to walk into a room, being not selfish about, you know, like bringing all that crap in with you is selfish, I think. And there's so much energy in the room, whether it's a rehearsal space or a large class of students or whatever. So
and I know that I think that also has to do with professionalism. You know, being professional, especially when you're in the leadership role, is very important. And also for the dancers that are working, it's very important that professionalism is key, getting there on time and not being so drama about everything. But using that in the performance, I think, is a great way to feel that maturity in the performance, that you have that life experience, I know for myself too, like as a mom, things never go smoothly, like never. Like I get frustrated because I want to go from point A to point B in a straight line.
Yeah.
And it's not. It's like there's an obstacle course, or there's a pause and you have to wait, and then you go and then there's a pause. So I find I have to give myself an extra 2 hours prep time for something that when I was by myself would take half an hour.
Yeah.
And I think not a lot of people know that the moms have to do this, and they, you still show up on time. So there's all these other things that need to be done. Okay, so what are some of the strategies, like when you're going from being pregnant to then finding your body to be able to teach, and then finding that strength to, also kind of have your own movement practice? What have you done for yourself to get back into your body?
Well, I learned a lot from the first time through that I applied the second, but I'd say if I think I was really active during my pregnancies, and then different births with both of them too, and people have different births to deal with and how long they need totally off perhaps. But I think once I could start again, it was I do a lot in the beginning when they're really little babies, of going to classes with them, like yoga classes or different fitness type classes, or just like fun music classes. We're moving a lot, walking a lot, and then just like that's, I have a lot, like a mat workout that I do for myself, that I build up, and I know where I was before I was pregnant even. I know where I want to be, so I try to incorporate now too, when they're napping or something like that, that I can do that work daily at some point, or oftentimes it's after both of them are in bed at night, because the day has just been really busy. And then if I'm teaching, I went back this time to teaching when Naomi was 2 months. I ramped up though, so I started teaching part-time, and then I was teaching full-time when she was 6 months, or just like I would say full-time means like to me like a daily technique class I was doing every day by 6 months, but definitely there was some ramping up to that point. I think the first time around pelvic floor physio was really helpful. The second time I didn't need it as much. I feel like I learned a lot, and I knew a lot about how my body might respond. I think emotionally, you're never really sure how you're going to respond, but physically I kind of had an understanding, so I did have a bit of a plan in place for how to deal with that. But an hour, like I would say having an hour a day for yourself can be really helpful, 4 days a week maybe even.
That's great.
And some people feel really good about doing that themselves, right? But I understand other people need to go to a class or follow a video or something like that. But I think, of course, we know the benefits of spending time on yourself. So I think if you can wrap it up in this physical thing that you need to do, and then it's also mental, and there's a lot of other elements to it, that's helpful. Because sometimes I'm on the mat and then I'm like, oh, I've been laying here for like 3 minutes, but I've been like meditating or something. There's something going on that feels like it's important for me in that moment. So
it's very grounding, because I find too, at least for me, if I'm teaching or if I'm with people and then I'm with the kids, what I crave the most is not being around people. And so I can only tune into my alignment when I'm by myself, with the lights off, and then I'm working through my alignment and my breath on the floor, and like releasing through ball work or core work or pelvic floor work. I mean, I remember that. I'm trying to get back to it now, but when they're little, and just trying to realign even things like your sacrum and your pelvis, and then diaphragm too, because I find that gets locked with moms, because the breathing is really shallow, and then just your alignment changes, going from a widened alignment to coming in as the months progress, right? So what would you give advice for dancers who are thinking about starting a family, or maybe have started a family and thought, okay, that's the end of the road, but they don't feel it in their heart? What would you say is possible for them? Like, what would you say?
I think I felt ready in a way. I felt prepared. I think there are lots of ways that dancers are prepared for families. I was talking to someone about this the other day who's due in the summer, and dancers are quite used to not having such a secure lifestyle, right? Like you go from gig to gig, or you go from contract to contract. If you stayed in it long enough, you are tolerant of a lot of things, frankly, right? And I think that lends itself well, because I think sometimes for many people a consideration of having children or not is financial, right? So I do think you can stretch things a lot. You can be resourceful, and in dance we're quite resourceful. We barter from each other, we do things for each other, and I think the same is true with childcare, or help in that way. I think there's a sense a little bit of being okay with losing something, but knowing that you're going to gain a lot too. So I think things will never be, but this is true for anyone, but things will never be how they were before. Right. But I don't know, I feel in some ways stronger than ever, because you've come this great feat that you've done just by being pregnant and giving birth, let alone everything that comes after, right? And this like new way of looking at the world, that if you're any kind of dance artist, whether you are an interpreter, performer, choreographer, research, whatever, it's like this new kind of lens for you. And I do like my children to be involved in my life and in what I'm doing, and I feel like dance is pretty approachable in that way. And I feel like people don't need to think that they need to cut themselves off from that. And there are many examples in our community here where children are weaved into the work that people are doing. I think you have to know, once you go into it, what feels good for you, because I think that that's different for everyone. Like I've had my kids at rehearsal, and Pearl's starting JK in September, so it is a consideration, like, okay, what if she's sick, or what if we have two now and they're sick? It's different than having one. But I think I have this job that I go to where I've brought my kids lots of times. They sit in, like, with a fever and watch class, or when they can't go to daycare, or they can't, whatever. So I think obviously there are days when that can't happen, but for the most part it's been so such a beautiful experience to have them involved in both my teaching and my rehearsing, and be close to the people that I work with, whether it be like my collaborators or the students even. And I feel like sometimes when I unexpectedly, like one day I brought Naomi into class when she was 7 months or something. It was totally unexpected. Craig had to be at a shoot, and so it just like changed everything though that day. It was like a rainy day, like today. Everyone was so excited. The musician was so excited. So she had like her shakers and she was keeping time. And I just feel like I would never have thought of those things before. I would never have thought about how they would be interwoven with my life, and how it would be embraced, I guess, more than anything. So,
and I have to say too, because I've brought my kids to rehearsals, and the same thing too, where I thought I could, my husband would be available, and didn't happen. He had a shoot too, and I'd be like, okay, we have to all go. Right. And I'm like, oh my God, I need to focus on this thing. But it's fine, and you know what? Like, my kids are older, the top two, and they, the way they see the world with like music and embracing, and sometimes they come up and tell me things, and I'm like, really? You were actually like listening? Because I try not to impose too much of what I believe on music and all these things and dance. Like, if they want to dance, they can dance, right? Yeah. But it's just normal. Yeah. It's normal to see a collaboration, to see a safe space, and to create. They just think, oh, isn't this normal? And it is, but it's kind of like for us growing up, like, I don't know, like, it's just for them just the way it is. So your girls will be like, well, isn't just this the way it is? Right? Which is a beautiful thing. Right?
And the speed of everything right now is so fast that I think when they see how a process works, whether they are like totally understanding it or not, I think what happens is sometimes Pearl comes to rehearsal and she gets bored, and then she like has to look at it in a different way. And then she's on the ground doing things, and they come to shows, and I think live, like, that is something, whether I was a dancer or not, I feel like seeing live work is important, and it slows us down, and it makes us have to sit there and give our attention to something, and I don't think that that's happening as much right now.
Right, it's the YouTube culture. And you can just see so many performances that way. But being in the room and hearing the artists breathe, or those pauses in the music, and you're like suspended in whatever that theme is very different live. And your children will also see how you're speaking to your collaborators, right? And you know, and you can just see that those two worlds are kind of similar in that way, and how you respect the artists and you respect the children so that they can thrive and then be like give you what's genuinely theirs, right?
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So in one sentence, how would you describe momentum? What is momentum for you?
Following that forward motion that is there always, whether I choose to go with it or get in its way, but following it.
Following it.
Yeah.
So follow that momentum, and my gosh, like Tracey, so inspiring. Thank you for sharing your story on how you're balancing both. I know it's not an easy job, and you're doing it very well and gracefully, so thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. If you enjoyed the video, comment below and subscribe, and head to drblessyl.com for other episodes of Momentum Live. Thank you so much for tuning in.